Hello and welcome to Forestedge Kart Club on the 6th of August 2023. It's time for round 3 of the two Counties Kart Club Championship, and the Formula Blues are lined up raring to go for their 11-minute plus a lap final this afternoon. Heading into this race, the championship standings look like this. It's Dave Watts leading from the front, with an equal points of Joe Foster and Anthony Cleal in behind. A further point back is Paul Alexander and Steve Groves, with Harry Smithson 6th ahead of Kieran Quirk, Stuart Gray, Robin Stoddart-Stones and Mike Bell making up the top 10. David Waldron comes next ahead of Kevin O'Neill, Max Gunter and Rob Mortimer, all even on 18 points. Nigel Vickery is going to complete the top 15 ahead of Chris Underhill, Paul Wheeler, Stuart Adam, David Good and Mitch Carpenter. In the Blue Masters standings, Anthony Cleal leading the way by a single point ahead of Joey Foster. Once again, Paul Alexander and Steve Groves tied on 5 points apiece in behind, with Stuart Gray completing the top 5 ahead of Robin Stoddart-Stones, David Waldron, Kevin O'Neill, Rob Mortimer and Nigel Vickery to complete the top 10. As the camera team head out on track, ready to capture all the action from this upcoming race. The Blue Veteran standings, Anthony Cleal currently leads the way on 0 ahead of Paul Alexander, a point ahead of Steve Groves, and a further point back to Stuart Gray in 4th, with Robin Stoddart-Stones completing the top 5. David Waldron comes next ahead of Kevin O'Neill, Rob Mortimer, Nigel Vickery, and the novice Paul Wheeler is going to complete the top 10 as things stand. In the Blue Legend standings, it's Robin Stoddart-Stones and Stuart Gray sharing the top honours ahead of Kevin O'Neill. Chris Underhill's 4th ahead of David Good to complete the top 5, and that is the Legends leader, Robin Stoddart-Stones, needing to be externally started there. Ron Schoen springing into action. In the Blue Top Weights, it's Paul Alexander leading the way ahead of Rob Mortimer and David Waldron tied on 4 points apiece, and Stuart Adam in 4th. The 3 heats today have gone as such. Harry Smithson won by 0.06 of a second from Anthony Cleal in Heat 1. Joey Foster 3rd ahead of Paul Alexander, with Mike Bell, Steve Groves, David Waldron, Max Gunter, Rob Mortimer and Mitch Carpenter to round out the top 10. Heat 2 was another close-knit affair as Anthony Cleal would take the win by just over 2/10 ahead of Dave Watts. Mike Bell a further second back in 3rd. Harry Smithson 4th ahead of Paul Alexander, with Max Gunter, Joey Foster, Steve Groves, David Waldron and Rob Mortimer completing the top 10. And in Heat 3 it was a win for Joey Foster this time ahead of Anthony Cleal, Max Gunter in 3rd ahead of Nigel Vickery and Mike Bell, with Alex Kemp, Chris Underhill, Steve Groves, David Good and David Waldron to complete the top 10. Those 3 heats are in the books and the grid will look like this. It's Anthony Cleal, the number 1, leading us around. Alongside him on the front row is the second Mac of Joey Foster. Mike Bell is 3rd ahead of Max Gunter in the number 99, with Harry Smithson and Steve Groves on row 3. David Waldron and Rob Mortimer come next ahead of Alex Kemp, and Paul Alexander completes the top 10, with Chris Underhill, David Good, Mitch Carpenter, Dave Watts, Nigel Vickery and Toby Cook in behind. Robin Stoddart-Stones, Kevin O'Neill, Alex Fortune will complete the grid, with Alfie Lenton and Rudy Winslow Morton coming off the back. As Anthony Cleal and Joey Foster back the pack up into a 2x2 formation. Watch out for the O-plate, Dave Watts starting very far out of position down in 15th. As we head through the cut through, ready to get underway, and here we go, round 3 of the two Counties Kart Club is on, and it's a good even start from the pack. It's Cleal leading into turn 1, but Mike Bell's trying to force his way up into 2nd place ahead of Joey Foster. Then come the 2 Pragas and the rest of the pack squabbling for position. Round through Johnny's for the first time and down the hill towards Winger's Dip. It's Cleal leading from Foster, Bell, Smithson, Gunter and Groves. That there is David Good being hung out to dry. Dave Watts, Mitch Carpenter and Nigel Vickery all making it through Anson's as they peel heads into the chicane. Now up the hill towards Midgets they go. Double apex right-hander over the crest. Lots of battles down the order. Now through Climate and down in towards Tolly's, the final left-hander. The pack seems single file. That's Paul Alexander looking at Rob Mortimer further back, but Dave Watts has got the run on exit, and Watts clouts the curb as we hop on board with Alex Kemp. The O-plate attacking the number 9, and Mitch Carpenter now looking to get stuck in against Kemp himself, so all to play for in the early stages. And that's Harry Smithson down the inside of Mike Bell for 3rd, so moves going on up at the front. Further back, that's Chris Underhill defending from Alfie Lenton as through the chicane we go with Joey Foster. That's a big ride over the curb, and that's going to give Smithson a run. And Harry Smithson up the inside at Midget, so Smithson from 4th to 2nd in less than half a lap. Further back, Mitch Carpenter's got the move done against Alex Kemp, and Rudy Winslow Morton's on the attack against David Good. As now we hop on board with Paul Alexander going down the hill into Tully's. That's Rob Mortimer, the number 42, and through goes Alexander. Dave Watts now already on the tail of the top weight, and down the inside we go into the Haynes loop. Good move for the O-plate, picking up another position. Quick math says he's into about 10th spot already, so 5 places gained for Watts. Further back, Nigel Vickery on the attack, so too Rudy Winslow Morton going to go round the outside of David Good, and he's making that move stick, so a good move there from Winslow Morton. But for the lead, it's Harry Smithson going down the inside at midgets against Anthony Cleal, and Smithson's going to cover off the cutback, so Cleal looking already to get back in, but he's going to run wide through Climate, and there's contact with Cleal and Foster, and around they both go. Anthony Cleal into the grass, Joey Foster spinning it back around, and Cleal is stuck. Foster looks like he's going to be able to rejoin, and now we're on board with David Waldron, and through goes the O-plate. That's Dave Watts, and Paul Alexander's going to follow him through. So Dave Watts moving up more positions, making progress. David Waldron now dropped down a few spots. I think that's down to 7th, and sure enough indeed it is, as the leaders now head through the bus stop. Steve Groves throwing a block in against Dave Watts. Further back, Nigel Vickery still on the tail of Alex Kemp, and Rudy Winslow Morton getting stuck in, and Vickery's hit the curb, and he's going to run wide on exit. Through goes Winslow Morton in the Birrell. As further back there, that's Joey Foster getting by Alfie Lenton, beginning his recovery, as that is Paul Alexander down the inside. The number 9 takes the number 4 in Tully's. Paul Alexander's favourite overtaking spot that, and now Dave Waldron looking to get stuck in, but that's water coming out the top of Steve Groves' radiator. And that's obviously making things quite slippy, as further back Alex Kemp's run wide. Winslow Morton looking at attacking him, as further back Joey Foster now right on the tail of Chris Underhill. Underhill going to go defensive down into Winger's Dip and Anson's, but Foster's going to get the run out up the hill. David Good ahead of them going for the hand choke there in the number 13. Through the bus stop they go, and Foster gets a big run against Underhill. And that's Winslow Morton getting a big run against Alex Kemp up through midgets and down the hill towards Climate. Kemp can't fight back. Winslow Morton's gotten ahead. And Nigel Vickery now right on Kemp's bumper as they round Tully's once again. Across the line to start another lap. And there's Dave Watts. He's got Paul Alexander in behind him. Steve Groves being chased down by David Waldron behind. And now we're on board with Foster once again. David Good in front of us, down the inside into Winger's Dip, and a good move there from Foster. His comeback drive is starting off well, as now we hop on board with Max Gunter, and that's a big problem ahead from Mike Bell. He's slowed right down. He's picking the speed up again though, so problem for Bell. Hopefully he's got it sorted down into Tully's, and Max Gunter down the inside for 2nd place. So it's a Praga 1-2, and that's Bell on the hand throttle as Dave Watts passes Bell for 3rd. Bell's octane is a handful at the best of times. How will he go round with one hand? Still plenty of race left to find out, and now Dave Watts down the inside of Gunter for 2nd place. So Watts makes another move in the early stages, as further back there that is Nigel Vickery now in behind Joey Foster, and Alex Kemp's going to run wide. Foster makes the move up the inside, up the hill against his Pirate M Sports teammate, and Joey Foster slots ahead of Alex Kemp. And now we hop up the track. Number 26 Mitch Carpenter is giving Rob Mortimer a hard time as they head down towards Climate. Good battle there between Carpenter and Rob Mortimer. And in behind them there's the big train. That is Nigel Vickery looking back down the inside of Alex Kemp once again, but Kemp's going to get the run on exit. Numbers 12 and 13 in battle behind the two legends Chris Underhill and David Good going into combat. As we hop on board with Alfie Lenton, getting a good view of it, as now we hop on board with Dave Waldron, and the camera's basically underwater. Steve Groves must still be leaking, as that's Alfie Lenton down the inside of Chris Underhill at Winger's Dip, and Underhill's going to run over the curb on exit. Up ahead that's Vickery making the move on Kemp, and Alfie Lenton slots through against Chris Underhill. So now we hop back on board with Paul Alexander making the move against Mike Bell. Easy as pie through Climate as around Tully's they go. Bell battling on. He's going to be under pressure now from Steve Groves and David Waldron next. But that's Anthony Cleal. He's starting to range in on the back of the pack on his own recovery drive. As round the Haynes loop, that's Vickery ahead of Kemp now. Good in behind then Lenton. And that's a slow Chris Underhill. Underhill is pulling into the pits and he's going to be out of the race. Meanwhile at the bus stop, Mitch Carpenter closing in on Rob Mortimer. Now they're going to look to get the run up the hill into midgets. Mortimer goes wide for the racing line and Carpenter down the inside. Good move there from Carpenter, but Mortimer's got the switchback. Now on the run down to Climate, Carpenter looks to the inside and he spun it. Mitch Carpenter's around, and that is a really awkward place. He's going to have to wait for a gap in the traffic as through goes the rest of the field. And round the Haynes Loop, Mike Bell now has Steve Groves and David Waldron right up on his back bumper. Further behind now, we're back on board with Joey Foster. Number 04 ahead of us is Rudy Winslow Morton. And Winslow Morton in the barrel is going to run right in Winger's Dip, and through goes Foster. Now Foster is going to head on up the track as we hop on board with Steve Groves now. And that's Bell with a big slide through midgets. The number 2 still hanging on to that 5th position on the road. Steve Groves and David Waldron up in behind. Waldron's going to be having a real hard time with this. He's got a driver with one hand and a driver that's leaking water all over the place in front of him. Treacherous times for the number 5 there with the yellow bumper. But Bell and Groves going into combat. Joey Foster now all over the back bumper of Rob Mortimer as they go down the hill. Round Winger's Dip goes the battle for 5th and the battle for 8th. Bell still holding off Groves. Groves still holding off Waldron. Rob Mortimer basically getting pushed up the hill by Joey Foster. As we hop on board with Rudy Winslow Morton, he's in the box seats as Foster down the inside at midgets, and Winslow Morton's going to follow him through. Good move there from the Mac and the Bureau driver, as that's Steve Groves and Dave Waldron passing Mike Bell through Climate and down through Tollies. They go to start another lap. Now we hop on board with Alfie Lenton. Number 13 ahead of us is David Good, and Lenton's going to give him a nudge in Tollies. He's going to try and cut back to the inside, but he's not going to have the drive. David Good's going to hold the position. As down the hill go the pair of threesomes in front. And round past the grandstand, Alfie Lenton down the hill. Good goes for the hand choke into Winger's Dip, and Lenton's going to pounce. And now Anthony Cleel's right behind the pair of them. But across the line, start another lap. Serenely out front is Harry Smithson in the Praga. But up the hill towards midgets, Alex Kemp now on the attack against number 7, Nigel Vickery, the Welshman. And Vickery's going to hold off Kemp. And now we're back on board with Waldron, and the camera's still basically drowned behind Steve Groves into the Haynes Loop. And Waldron's locked up and he's lost it. David Waldron goes around. Through goes Bell, Foster, Winslow Morton and Rob Mortimer. And now Vickery and Kemp are going to be tailing in very closely. Now we hop on board Winslow Morton once again down through Winger's Dip, and another problem for Bell. Joey Foster does a great job to avoid him. Through goes Winslow Morton. Through goes Rob Mortimer as well, as Mike Bell returns to racing speed through the bus stop. Nigel Vickery in behind all over the tail of David Waldron already. Alex Kemp in there as well. So a three-way duel going round midgets. Now into Tollies, the final corner. Steve Groves now. Can he do anything to stop the recovery drive of Joey Foster? Meanwhile, further back, Nigel Vickery looking at David Waldron as they go across the line. Back on board with Foster. Another good run through the grandstand. Groves going to defend the position down the hill towards Winger's Dip. We're not going to see. And through the background there, Groves has held the position. Nigel Vickery on the attack as well, as through the chicane we go. The 360 camera of Groves being spun around, and Joey Foster's got the position on exit up the hill towards midgets. And that's Mitch Carpenter. He's gotten back out of the grass, and Harry Smithson's put a lap on him. Now we're back on board once again with Alex Kemp. Nigel Vickery ahead of us, David Waldron ahead of him. And they've all caught Mike Bell in the struggling number 2 as they cross the line. 26 seconds left on the clock, so not long left now as Waldron to the inside of Bell. Vickery's going to follow him through, likewise Kemp and Anthony Cleel. The number 1's back in the fight as they all get through past Bell. Down the hill, Nigel Vickery all over the back of David Waldron, and Kemp's going to hit the curb, and that's going to give Anthony Cleel a run, and Cleel makes the move into the bus stop. Still things changing up and down the order, and here's another battle. Paul Alexander's quietly crept up on Max Gunter. This is the battle for 3rd and the final position on the podium. And they've got a bit of a gap behind them to Joey Foster. Then comes Steve Groves and Rudy Winslow Morton. Then there's the Waldron train with Anthony Cleel attacking Nigel Vickery. They're going to head into the Haynes Loop. Vickery's going to run wide, but he's going to carry the momentum and he's going to hold off the defending champion. As round they go to continue their race, and up the hill goes Rudy Winslow Morton. Steve Groves going defensive on the way into the bus stop, through the right, through the left and through the right. Up the hill, Groves gets squirrely on exit, and here comes the Birrell down the inside. Good move there by Winslow Morton. And into Tollies for third is Paul Alexander down the inside of Max Gunter, to a big reaction from the grandstands. The last lap board was out as well, so Max Gunter only has a lap to get that position back, or can the number 9 hold him off as they head down the hill? Likewise, Steve Groves running out of time to do anything about Winslow Morton, and through goes Anthony Cleal against David Waldron. So Cleal picks up another position on his comeback drive, but round Climate for the final time and down into Tollies. Number 16, the Prague of Harry Smithson, takes the win here at round 3 of the Two Counties Kart Club Championship. The O-Plate, Dave Watt's going to follow him home for second, but who's going to be third? It looks like it's going to be Alexander. Big wheeljack in the final corner, but Alexander makes it to the line to get up on the podium. Meanwhile, there's still plenty of racing going on. Anthony Cleal slotted a move down the inside of Climate against Rob Mortimer. Nigel Vickery's attacking David Waldron as well as they all go across the line. Alfie Lenton right on the bumper of Mike Bell as well, and here comes David Good holding off Robin Stoddart Stones, and that is going to complete an action-packed race this afternoon at Forestedge Kart Club as the Formula Blues head back into the pit lane and through scrutineering. Wow, what a race that was. There's David Good and Robin Stoddart Stones, and the results look like this. Harry Smithson declared the winner, 4.5 seconds clear of Dave Watts, who would take the fastest lap on his way up into second. Paul Alexander is going to round out the top 3 ahead of Max Gunter and Joey Foster making it back to 5th. Rudy Winslow Morton from the back of the grid is going to make it up to 6th place ahead of Steve Groves and Anthony Cleal, with Rob Mortimer and David Waldron completing the top 10. They're going to be ahead of Nigel Vickery and Alex Kemp, with Mike Bell and Alfie Lenton and David Good completing the top 15 ahead of Robin Stoddart Stones. Mitch Carpenter completed the race a lap down, and unfortunately Chris Underhill had to pull in early. What that'll do to the championship standings, Dave Watts is going to continue to lead the way. Joey Foster, Anthony Cleal and Harry Smithson all now in a 3-way tie for second place ahead of Paul Alexander. Steve Groves 6th ahead of Max Gunter and Mike Bell. Robin Stoddart Stones is 9th, and David Waldron is going to round out the top 10 even on points with his local rival. Rob Mortimer comes next ahead of Kevin O'Neill, Nigel Vickery, Chris Underhill and David Good to complete the top 15 at the halfway point of the Two Counties Kart Club Championship. In the Blue Masters class is Anthony Cleal leading the way by a single point ahead of Joey Foster. Steve Groves overtakes Paul Alexander up into 3rd ahead of Alexander. David Waldron is going to complete the top 5 ahead of Rob Mortimer and Robin Stoddart Stones, with Kevin O'Neill 8th ahead of Nigel Vickery and Chris Underhill going to complete the top 10, even on points with David Good. They're going to be ahead of Alex Fortune, Stuart Gray, Alex Kemp and Paul Wheeler. In the Blue Veteran standings, Anthony Cleal leads the way still ahead of Paul Alexander and Steve Groves, even on points for second. David Waldron beats Rob Mortimer by a single point to complete the top 5 ahead of Robin Stoddart Stones, with Kevin O'Neill, Nigel Vickery, Chris Underhill and David Good rounding out the top 10. That's not going to be all, because in the Blue Legend standings it's Robin Stoddart Stones continuing to lead the way ahead of Chris Underhill, and David Good even on points with Underhill in 2nd and 3rd. Kevin O'Neill is going to be 4th ahead of Stuart Gray. And in the Blue Top Weights, Paul Alexander continues his perfect season, with Rob Mortimer and David Waldron tied on points for 2nd and 3rd in behind. And that is going to be all for this afternoon at round 3 of the Two Counties Kart Club Championship. Join us next time out for the 6th and final round of the NKRA Blue Challenge for 2023 from Mansell Raceway. We will see you then. Goodbye. Oh, no, I was going well, but